Welcome to Follow Me to the MROP, a podcast dedicated to the journey of the masculine soul and the transformative power of initiation. My name is Brian Mueller. I live in suburban Dayton, Ohio, and I made my rites at Pilgrim Park in Illinois in 2014. I'm your host, and in each episode of our show, I'll sit down with one man who has made his rites, and I'll invite him to tell his story. This won't be an abstract explanation or a theological lecture, just a real conversation about what it was like to cross that threshold at the rites and what changed afterward. Before we begin, a quick word of gratitude. This podcast is brought to you by Choosing Presence. We believe that the greatest gift a man can give his community is his own presence. In a world of constant distraction, Choosing Presence provides the tools to help you stay grounded in the now. If you'd like an easy way to begin learning about the practice of presence, you can download the free Practicing Presence app at choosingpresence.org/app. Now, the Men's Rites of Passage, or MROP, is an experience designed to help men move from the first half of life into the second, shifting from a focus on ego and achievement to a life of meaning and soul. On this show, we just don't talk about the rites in theory, we talk to the men who have walked the path. Today, we are joined by a man who has made his rites, and we're going to hear exactly what that journey looked like for him. My guest today is Charlie Myking. Brother, I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for making time and for being willing to share your story.
You're most welcome. It's good to be here, Brian.
Thank you, Charlie. Charlie, so tell us where you're from and how you spend your time these days.
I'm from Columbus, Ohio. At least that's where I'm living now. I am retired, and I spend as much of my time on the golf course as I can get there. But lately, these past several months, it's been really sparse. So I attempt other things to try and stay in some kind of physical shape.
The weather's great now, isn't it? But it's a little bit too wet. It's warm enough, but you'd be
Quite a bit
floating out there.
wet.
All right. Well, now let's dive in and talk about the Men's Rites of Passage. The MROP is a unique experience. It's not a retreat or a workshop. It's an initiation. Many men arrive at the rites at a crossroads in their lives, looking for someone or something they can't quite name. Before we dive into the why and the how, let's start from the very beginning. So where and when did you make your rites?
At Ghost Ranch in 2018.
And when you think back to that weekend, what's the first image or feeling that comes to your mind?
My original answer to that, when I was thinking about it, was dried buffalo dung. And, and it's only because when we were on the solo wandering out in the middle of nowhere, we encountered these piles of something I had never seen before. But it was the place that my soul partner and I, who were on the wander together, really came together, and we were just very fascinated by those piles of dried buffalo dung.
That's interesting. So, maybe just think in general terms. Can you describe for us how that weekend was? What was that weekend like for you?
It was very much the same kind of feeling and experience that I had hitting bottom many years ago when my alcoholism had come to a head, and it was either do something about it or you're going to die. That bottom experience of letting go, and then the fill that occurred afterwards.
That's profound. Now, who was your weaver at the rites, and about how many men were at your rites?
We had a huge group. There were about 100 men. Jim Taylor was the primary weaver, and my favorite connection during that weekend was with Belden Lane. He ended up being my mentor, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
So, without sharing anything that maybe you'd consider confidential or too personal, was there a moment or a few moments that really stood out to you that you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
The moments that stood out to me were the connection that I made with other men on the same journey. I still remember sitting around tables when we had the opportunity to dine together and being able to speak with Father Richard Rohr. I remember sitting at the table with Belden Lane and talking to him about my the loss of my daughter and how profound that was in my life and in changing things. those kinds of experiences and connection with other people and their personal experiences help very much to deepen my own.
Now, was there a single, moment or that is most impactful to you or memory that stands out? Was there something, very definitive?
Yeah, it was finding my soul brother. It was a man named Gilbert and myself who were teamed up to go out on the solo wandering, and the reason we were teamed up is so that you wouldn't get lost and eaten by wildcats. And we were together, and it was very much one of those experiences of wow, this is the soul brother that I had been looking for a long time.
Now you're looking back now at the rights, from about 8 years perspective, and if you with that additional perspective that you have of time, what's the kinda overall description you would give of the rights to someone?
I think the overall description would have to be this is an opportunity to experience a soul journey with fellow seekers. We are in a pretty scarce society of people that are actually out there looking to connect with the earth, to connect with a power greater than themselves, in any way other than what I would consider pretty superficial. And in the rights experience, you are with other men of the same heart that you have, and they are seeking that same kind of connection. And it's really easy, much easier to get caught up in that flow than trying to fight it on your own out there in a world who really basically doesn't care.
Now, a lot of guys come to the rights with sort of an intention set, something they're hoping for, or some of them might even come to the rights a bit timid or afraid of something that's going to happen. Was that the case for you? Did you have either something you were hoping for, something you were fearing, or both?
More of a neither. I was very curious about the experience and had read enough about why Father Richard and had initiated this, which was because we are totally lacking any kind of rites of passage in our current culture. And I wanted to experience what that might be like because I had not had any experience similar to it in the past, and I was very much looking forward to it.
So the rights is about 5 days, 4 nights experience, and when you come up to the end here, and you have the closing rituals and things like that, and then it's time to leave. It's a little different for everybody. Some guys have to, catch a shuttle back to the airport and hurry back to their lives. Other guys are carpooling, or some guys even can drive off and spend some time processing. I don't know what your experience was of that. If you could share a little bit about what your departure was like, and just the rights sat with you immediately after they ended.
I was with another man from, Columbus. We had gone together to do it, and we both collectively agreed that even though we got our phones back, we were not gonna turn them on, and we were going to ride most of the way back to the airport in Albuquerque without letting either of our spouses know that that's what we were doing, is we didn't want to have that whole experience of I guess decompression might be the right word, spoiled by somebody asking questions that we weren't really ready to answer. And so we together agreed that we were just literally gonna leave our phones off and allow ourselves to ride in silence from Ghost Ranch almost all the way to, well, actually, we ended up getting a hotel room overnight, before we, came back. So we were able to spend that time decompressing and letting the thoughts process rather than trying to answer somebody's questions that we really were not prepared to answer.
I bet it was nice though to have somebody that had just gone through that experience with you
Oh,
and,
very much so.
to help do some processing. But when you were finally alone and back on doing your own thing, was there a moment when the sort of the experience really kind of landed for you, the enormity of it or the magnitude of what you experienced?
I think as much as anything, what I actually felt was a little frustration over not being able to communicate the depth and the broadness of the experience myself, and getting somebody else fired up to have the experience and to say, "Oh man, I got to do that." It was so profound for me, and yet I kind of felt like people were looking at me like, "Yeah, he's kind of wacky anyway." So you know, oh, but the profoundness and the wonder of it, I kept wanting other people to react the same way I was feeling, and, like I said, it was a little frustrating that I couldn't communicate that with any real impact and get, you know, a group of guys to go the next year to experience the same thing.
So thinking back now a little bit to just before you began the rites, before you signed up even, what kind of conversations were you having with your partner, with your friends, other family members? Were there anything that stands out to you?
Beth and I had done, 3 different, book studies with 3 different groups on Father Richard Rohr's breathing underwater, and during the 3rd, experience, we had been looking at Brent and I had been looking at the, other things that were there to offer if in this thing that Richard Rohr called or was being called Illuman. We didn't know anything about it, and there were, a list of events that were upcoming. One of them was an MROP. We had no idea what that meant, and the other one was to go to Tamaya, for this gathering, of what turned out to be 300 men in the middle of the, New Mexico desert, and, we decided on that one, purely by luck. It was I don't know that we would have been able to handle an MROP at that point in time, but we went out together and it was like, "Wow, this was this is the group of people that I really wanna be able to get to know because they are the same kind of seeker that I am."
And then, so good. So you had the support of your partner, and that's important to have for a lot of men as well when they undertake men's rites of passage. But what were those conversations like afterwards? So what were your conversations like with Beth or others after the MROP? Anything different?
I'm not sure that the conversations were really any different, but I think what happened is that it really opened up the door for an experience a short time later to go back to Ghost Ranch with the Gender Equity and Reconciliation Commission, and I think probably 25 men and their partners, their wives from, Illuman, and that for us was a real turning point in our experience of one another and spirituality. It was an amazing, experience, and my enthusiasm about having been to Ghost Ranch and the people that I had met, opened the door for, Beth and I both very willingly to say, "Yeah, we're gonna do this," because it was another opportunity to experience something we had never experienced.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're saying that the rites actually just took you deeper on your spiritual journey, and then just opened up, expanded the work that you were able to do with Beth.
Very much so. We still use council, the council format as a way of, creating a safe container for our communication. When we are sharing and talking with one another and there are issues that, need to be discussed, we use the safe container of council, to make it possible to be able to express ourselves comfortably.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned counsel. That hasn't come up in previous conversations, but counsel is actually the way we do work within Illumin, and even at the MROP, men will be placed in small group councils to do further processing and conversation and work together. So, yeah, that's really neat. So now it's been 8 years. What's changed in your life since making your rights, practically, relationally, spiritually?
Well, the things that are different are pretty much the way that I view the people who come into my life, especially with what is a real propensity for most of us to be very judgmental, of those that we encounter. And my first reaction most of the time is to say, "Oh, that's good or bad. He's right or wrong." And then I have to backtrack and pull myself back and say, "Wait a minute. It is not yours to judge. That person is a human being, and regardless of what side of the fence they're on, they are loved as much by this God that I understand as I am." And it's not a matter of favor or favoritism. It's a matter of equality in the eyes of this higher power that I'm growing into a better relationship with.
That's really a gift, yeah. So how has, your understanding or has it of, masculinity, initiation, and even your purpose in life, how's that shifted over this time since the rites?
I grew up in a society in northern Minnesota where the lumberjack was our male was our male model. And of course, you know what a lumberjack is, this big Paul Bunyan-ish kinda guy with an axe over his shoulder and a Babe the Blue Ox,
Right.
and all power and all might. And what I began to see was, that was a very false understanding of what manhood is. And it was a very distorted view of which most of the time I felt like I came up very short and that I wasn't really a man. The change that has occurred in me is to not continue to honor and look for that in my own manhood or anybody else's manhood, but rather to look for vulnerability and willingness to openly love and accept everyone exactly as they are, not as we would like them to be or want to change them to.
Yeah, what comes to mind when you talk about this is, Father Richard Rohr, who says, "Every change of mind is first of all a change of heart." So it sounds like, the rites really had that deep impact sort of on the Sacred Heart space for you.
Very much so.
Now, this is the point in our conversation where I say, what counsel, what advice would you offer a man who is discerning whether or not to participate in the rites?
Do it.
Yeah.
You will not regret the opportunity and the experience that it is. I think probably the biggest single experience that I have had following it, and perhaps even disappointment, is that we haven't created a good place for all of those who have had that MROP experience to be able to gather on a regular ongoing basis to further that experience. I've had the ongoing experience of my 12-step program where my growth continues. I go to meetings literally every day. Illuman does not have that same luxury to offer and that opportunity to be gathering with fellow seekers on a regular basis because I can slip off this path pretty easily and get distracted and then get disappointed and then say, "Oh, that didn't really happen," or just totally lose touch with it.
I do have
So
a bonus.
ongoing connection, I think, would probably be the single thing that I would highly recommend that you find a soul brother or somebody that you can communicate with pretty much every day.
Well, and it's important to say that in some areas there are councils that exist that men can engage in. And then we also have a program now where it trains men, teaches men how to form a council. And they can, if they are in an area that is particularly lacking in that sort of connection and that community, then they can maybe try to create that themselves.
Yes.
Well, I have a bonus question for you, Charlie, and you and I have known each other at least since around the time that you made your rights. I think we met first at the writing retreat that we host annually here in Ohio, and I've had the good privilege of traveling with you to Oracle and traveling with you to Wild God Retreat in Chicago, all sponsored by Illuman. And know how deep your involvement's been, but that includes participation following your men's rites of passage in the elder rites of passage. And I just wanted to know if you wanted to share a few comments about the elder rites of passage, and that is the next step for you.
Yeah. Elder Rites of Passage, was a continuation of this entire experience, and it took it it took me to even deeper levels of connectedness to the earth and to being still. We are a people who believe that being busy and doing is what makes us valuable, and I think what I learned in the Elder Rites of Passage that being still is as valuable as doing.
And I kind of it kind of begs the question here, in that you said that you've done both the men's rites and the elder rites of passage. How would you distinguish them? And if a man is trying to consider which one to participate in, maybe they're in the later stages of life, where's that line for you, or where what would you say to help them make that decision?
Wow. I think you could probably go ahead if you are somewhere in the age of retirement and do the elder rites of passage and get very fulfilled by it. I think a rites of passage in our culture should be reinstated for anybody that passes the age of 35. They should be going through a rites of passage. We don't have that demand and we don't have that opportunity. But for those of us who are have lived our lives, have worked our jobs, have done our careers, have raised children, have done all those things, this elder rites of passage and this walk into a time that's nearing the end of our lives is a really valuable experience.
Yeah, and the men's rites of passage, Father Richard Rohr began offering those in 1996. So there's a longer history of those, and the elder rites actually began in 2018. I know of at least one man who did it in the opposite direction. He did the elder rites first, and then he did the men's rites of passage, wanting to participate in both. So I don't think there's any hard and fast distinction. Even at my rites of passage, there was a man that was with us that was 89 years old. So I think back to him now because he would be over 100 if he was still alive. But anyway, yeah, there are those two distinct programs, and people can go to elderritesofpassage.org if they want to learn more about that as well. But the purpose of this interview is to really help men discern their participation in the men's rites of passage. So, brother, I thank you deeply and from the heart. I appreciate your honesty, your courage, and for you giving us a window into your MROP experience. Thank you, Charlie.
More than welcome, Brian.
For those listening who are now feeling a tug in their own soul and are curious to learn more, allow me to share a bit about the history of these rites. The men's rites of passage was originally developed by Father Richard Rohr and was first offered at Ghost Ranch, New Mexico in 1996. While it was supported for many years by the Center for Action and Contemplation, since 2012, Illuman has been the steward of this work, preserving and adapting the rites for men all over the world. To learn more about the history and the theology behind this work, I highly recommend reading Adam's Return by Richard Rohr. If you are ready to make your rites, there are 4 opportunities in the United States and another in the United Kingdom in 2026. The first is in Northern California, May 13th through the 17th. The second in the United Kingdom, July 22nd through the 26th. And in Illinois, August 12th through the 16th. There's one on the East Coast in New Jersey, September 16th through the 20th. And the final one of the year is in Texas, which is in MROP and Umbrales, our Spanish language rites, September 30th through October 4th. You can find details and registration information at illuman.org/MROP or illuman.org/events. Additionally, mark your calendars for Awaken, the annual national gathering of Illuman, taking place November 5th through the 8th in New Mexico. You can find more at illuman.org/awaken. Finally, a special thank you to our sponsor, Choosing Presence. If today's conversation moved you, I encourage you to bring more intentionality into your daily life. Download the Practicing Presence app for free at choosingpresence.org/app. It's a simple but profound way to stay connected to the journey we've discussed today. Thank you for listening to Follow Me to the MROP. Until next time, brothers, stay present.